candidates, I want to talk about the outbreak of political violence that we've seen, especially the recent headlines. Start with you, Mr. Schumer. The recent home invasion and violent attack on the spouse of Speaker Nancy Pelosi has highlighted the dangers faced by many elected officials. Do you believe the attack in San Francisco is an isolated incident or part of a larger trend?
Well, first, my heart goes out to Paul Pelosi and Nancy Pelosi. I've spoken with her a whole bunch of times, and praise God, it looks like he will have a full recovery, despite the vicious attack against him. But look, there have been many more threats against elected officials. It's been documented that I've received a few. We have to calm the rhetoric down. We have to make sure that we treat each other with respect and condemn the violence whenever it occurs.
Mr. Pinion, the critics say that the rise in political violence nationwide is at least in part a consequence of fighting words and the combative tone struck by some members of the media. As a former broadcaster, do you think the media can, in fact, lower the temperature of political disputes?
I think
should it?
There is a greater responsibility that must be shared by the media. I would simply note there's only one person on this stage whose rhetoric has quite literally driven an American to the doorstep of a Supreme Court justice to kill him. That was Chuck Schumer. So at the end of the day, yes, we can talk about our institutions. We can talk about the overheated rhetoric. But nothing changes if nothing changes. And whether he wants to acknowledge it or not, it is Chuck Schumer whose divisive rhetoric has led to the environment that we see today. I will not lay all the blame at his feet, but he has been in D.C. for 42 years, 24 years in the United States Senate. His chief actual tool in politics is the division. We are here to unite this nation. We are here to unite this state. We are here to tell the untold story of pain and suffering in this state that has occurred on his watch. Issues I hope we talk about, the children living in poverty, the crime that has gripped this state. 12 major cities hit all-time highs for homicide. That's always part of this lack of accountability for the lawlessness that is all across this country because our leaders have not taken that scourge of crime and violence seriously.
Give him a chance to respond.
Yeah, the bottom line is that we do have to deal with violence. We have to deal with the heated rhetoric. I would say, for instance, that one of the people who's heated the rhetoric up the most is former President Trump. And so we all have to calm it down. I don't notice that Joe Biden has done any of that. You compare the rhetoric of Donald Trump to Joe Biden, it ain't close in terms of heatedness, in terms of divisiveness, in terms of pointing fingers at people.
Well, just respectfully, Joe Biden's not running for U.S. Senate in New York. Donald Trump is not running for U.S. Senate in New York. You are, sir, and you were the one that had that rhetoric. Do you feel as if that was responsible, and do you apologize to Justice Kavanaugh?
Mr. Schumer, did you want to respond?
Look, the bottom line is that I have never advocated violence in any way, never have, never do, never will. The words I used that day were probably the wrong choice of words, and I said that then and say it now.
I want to ask you a question, Mr. Pinion. You called former President Donald Trump a, quote, distraction. But the January 6th attack on the Capitol remains the largest federal investigation in American history, with more than 800 people from all 50 states arrested and facing charges, a congressional investigation that has not yet concluded. Can the former president's connection to the attack truly be dismissed as simply a wedge issue?
Well, let's be very clear. I said that President Trump was a distraction as to our choice for who should be representing the state of New York in the United States Senate. If you want to talk about January 6th, I have said at the time and every day since then that any person who uses the flag of this nation to break glass at the people's house should be held accountable. And if you're actually noticing, what you have just listed off is what accountability looks like. The problem is that on that fateful day, those horrific scenes that will be etched into the fabric of this nation for eternity, we have politics that overheated. And now the solution for that overheating of our politics by Senator Schumer is to inject more politics into this wildfire that is consuming everything that we love. And so again, if we are going to change America, if we are going to have less division in America, if we are going to actually follow in the words of Lincoln that was quoted by this president who promised to unify us, that his whole soul was in it, our whole soul must be in selecting leaders that are actually going to stop using the rhetoric of hate to keep the American people divided at such a time as this.